Sharing his knowledge with us today is Glimmery. He is a well-known prop trader on crypto Twitter who has recently transitioned to DeFi and quantitative trading. I absolutely loved recording this episode. Glimmery had some fantastic insights into the sacrifices many traders make for success whilst dropping great advice for new and experienced traders. Most traders just talk about their wins, so hearing Glimmery talk about his losses is something we can all learn from. In addition to this, we also cover yield farming, investing, and a whole host of other types of trading and the essence of what makes someone a successful trader. Now, if you want to help me avoid losses, remember to like and subscribe below. To stay one with the crypto markets, sign up and get 6 free market meditations newsletters a week. You'll find a link in the description below. A quick thanks to our partners Exodus and Nexo for making this podcast possible. There will be more on them later. Meditators, welcome to another episode of the Market Meditations podcast. Today we have with us a legend from the crypto Twitter space, Glimmery. Glimmery, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. I know you've been trading for a little while now, Glimmery. Could you tell us a little bit about your trading background?
Definitely. So, initially I started at a little prop firm, and over the past, I was there for about 3 years, and over the past 6 months, decided that I kind of wanted to venture out on my own, dabble in a few different strategies involving like DeFi, quant-based trading, and kind of go down that route more so than maybe lower time frame trading. So I kind of decided to make my own firm in the last 6 months and just been focusing on that end of it all. And so I've kind of made a bit of a shift towards DeFi, and not gonna lie, absolutely love it. It's a super interesting kind of space to be in.
Glimmery, what made you transition from the lower time frame prop firm trading over to now what you're doing, which is DeFi?
I guess lower time frame trading, it is super intensive, and you end up being in front of a computer 24/7 waiting for volatility per se. So I kind of was in a cycle of where working 20 hours a day, getting 4 hours of sleep, getting disturbed sleep. Maybe like I would have an alarm going off trying to tell me to trade. And I guess I got my body was over it. I couldn't really do that anymore to my body. So I decided that maybe longer term trading was more my thing, and DeFi allowed me to do that, as well as quant trading. I could have something algorithmically take risk on and risk off, and kind of allow my thoughts on the market to be there and risk on and risk off, and appropriately hedge a position based on what I thought without me having to be awake all the time. So I think it was just an appropriate time. It had been 3 years, and yeah, your body really gets quite sore. I put on a ton of weight during the whole process, and kind of, yeah, just having fun, being able to sleep normally. Live a really good life now.
I'm so happy for you that you're living a good life now, and I can relate a lot to almost the exact same issue. Way back, I had a low time frame trading system, and I was using manual alerts. So I'd get about 9 going off every single night throughout my sleep. I just get up, check, execute if needed be, go back to sleep, and it was fine for a little while. But eventually, it started draining into the health and happiness of my life, as well as just giving me insomnia for a long amount of time. And you really cherish sleep after that. But do you regret it? Do you regret that period?
Definitely not. I don't think I could ever. I had such a good time doing what I did, and I loved every minute of it. Um, Regret, no. I wish I had changed things slightly, like kind of listened to my body a bit more, cherish sleep a little bit more, and kind of. I do remember certain moments of my life neglecting certain friends, or neglecting friends in general, to trade, and why I guess that maybe is a regret. Neglecting friends to then trade so I can make more money, and that was a moment where I realized I needed to. Afterwards, I kind of realized what I was doing, and I had to make that adjustment to make sure that I kept in touch with people, because I don't. At the end of the day, right? Money is money, but you don't really get to rebuild a lot of these relationships if you kind of burn them. So that's been a major focus. Yeah, a major focus of mine recently, actually.
People forget that to create a vast amount of wealth, you need to slowly invest. Sometimes you can get rich quickly, but usually you just invest, take advantage of compound interest, and build yourself tremendous amount of wealth over X period of time. But to create, to bring love into your life and have good relationships, you need to invest that same time and energy into friends, into relationships. People seem to forget that those need just as much care as your financial investments do.
Definitely. It's you need to take your friends and take the relationship side very seriously. I remember specifically one friend came to visit me from a different city. This is one of my closest friends, and they told me, "Wow, I met her maybe like 6 weeks prior, and then I met her again 6 weeks later when she came and visited, and she asked me, she was like, 'Have you seen anyone else since I last saw you?' And I was like, "No, I haven't. I've been sitting in my room and trading." And at that moment, I was like, "Wow, that has to change," because I remember a lot of my friends making the like branching out to me and trying to like have these events or try to connect, but then me turning them down. And I remember now, right now, I make sure that if anyone ever invites me to a situation or invites me to an event or invites me out, I will always say yes, unless there is something else that I'm doing that is outside of trading related. If I have nothing to do outside trading, I will never use trading as an excuse to blow my friend off. Like that's just not something I do anymore, and I think that to me has made a significant difference in my life.
Now, did this happen after you'd achieved a certain amount of wealth? For example, if you didn't have the amount of success financially that you had right now, would you still hold the same opinion?
I wouldn't be able to tell you. I can definitely say that it was after I had an amount that I probably was relatively comfortable with. Like maybe I was probably a seven-figure amount, but I just remember being like, you know what, I don't really care about this money if I can't maintain relationships and friendships outside of this. So that was a big shocking moment to me.
Now, traders are often very competitive, and I'm sure you feel that same drive to push yourself as far as you can in this art, if you will. Does it ever get difficult knowing that prioritizing friends, family, and this other stuff is taking away from this craft that you love and are obsessed with now that you've made this decision?
I don't think so. I think that you kind of get to a point where you realize what's more important, and money is never the answer. Well, obviously there is this like maybe amount that you need to live, and that is maybe to pay your rent, to feed yourself and maybe your children, and to live relatively comfortable. After I think that point, any additional dollar, I don't think really increases your happiness that much anymore. So I think once you pass a certain level, you just kind of have to take that into consideration. Not saying that I don't think you should push yourself, but definitely as you get, older and as you get more wealth, you have to, yeah, you have to kind of think about these little things. I, I always say to my friends at the very start, like, push yourself as hard as you can, especially for the first few years. But at a certain point, you do realize that you work so that those few years, at least for myself, was that moment where I could then have this freedom later on that has allowed me to do the things I want to do.
What point do you think that is where you get financial freedom? And how do you know you're at that point?
I don't think there's a specific point. $1 million today doesn't really mean $1 million as it did in the past, right? You can't really, or at least you can't really afford a house for $1 million anymore. That's a one-bedroom apartment 20 minutes away from the city. So I don't think it's a specific moment. I personally don't really like to use money. I'm relatively cheap. Again, I don't really. I drive a Honda City, a 5-year-old Honda City. I'm gonna give it to my little brother, but I drive a shitbox car. I like being cheap. I like getting deals. I like a lot of my clothes are like from Vietnam at a secondhand shop and like got them for less than a few dollars. I don't know. Like, I guess it really depends. Financial freedom is so dependent on your lifestyle. I don't think there's a specific point, or everyone's specific point maybe be different. Personally, I want to have a family, and maybe that is when I can afford to have a family and do that, kind of support them for the rest of my life. Maybe I don't really know. I don't think I've really thought about what point is financial freedom. I think that if you can create, at least in Australia, $100,000, it allows you to pay yourself well, to pay for a place to live, pay for food, and I think if you have those two or three things done, then I don't think that there is anything else that you can really want. Well, that's a point where it's kind of that isn't that financial freedom though?
That does sound like financial freedom, and it's a valuable takeaway from your days of low time frame trading at the prop firm. Are there any other Are there any specific trading related takeaways that you had? Things you learned about either yourself emotionally with regards to risk management, or any personality trait, any tips you think traders can take away from your time, lower time frame trading?
Um, Look, having worked at a prop firm, I kind of saw a lot of different personalities, and I think for me personally, I went into trading. A little bit of a backstory about myself. I remember uh, I had was about to finish university, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was doing an econ and finance degree, and I loved how economic markets kind of moved with news, and I was really fascinated by the FX market. And I remember specifically watching Donald Trump win the election and how that moved the FX markets. And that to me was fascinating. And at that moment, I fell in love with like how money and how markets move. And I think if you do it for the money, I don't think that if you go into trading because of money specifically, and that's the only reason why you do it, I found that a lot of people that do that kind of get washed out really fast. I think the people that love the mental challenge of it all um, end up being the best traders. Personally, because I just think that they don't really care about the money side. It's more about like trying to figure out this complex solution to an answer or to a problem that is ever evolving. It's like it's like a puzzle piece, right? And every day they're taking puzzle pieces away, and you have to like constantly reevaluate how you find the market. And if you don't have that love to kind of constantly try piece it back together, then I don't think you're going to make it. If you're doing it purely for the money, I don't think that like pure drive is there enough to really be able to make it big, in my opinion. And that's what I've seen in a lot of traders. Like, yeah,
If I were to try and draw a conclusion from that, uh, perhaps, or reasoning for it, when you're in it for the money is the outcome of trading. If you do it right, you're very much focused on the outcome. Whereas if you're doing it for the craft, you become very process orientated, which is usually something which ends up leading to success.
yeah. I mean, I guess so, right? Like, I specifically remember the I have very specific moments in my life that I think have really changed me as a person. And at university, I had fallen in love with trading, but I had gone down the kind of general path of going into consulting, and I had applied for a graduate program, and I got into a highly regarded graduate program. And I just remember thinking, like looking back, and I was like, "Holy shit, what have I done? I've made a mistake. I want to become a trader, and I'm now in this position where I'm going to consulting." And I kind of freaked out, and I was like, "No, no, no, no! I want to be a trader." And so I remember talking to all my friends about it, and it was mixed emotions. It was mixed about it. A lot of my friends said for me to do it, and a lot of my friends said, "No, no, no! Just take the easy generic route." And my parents were super against it, but I think that drive and the love for trading kind of pushed me towards it, and it was a no brainer. I had to try and give it a go, and I think that if you really love it, you should be really pushing yourself. And yeah, going into trade. If that is your pure love, then do it.
Uh, Trading is extremely risky, without a doubt. And most people who go into it, myself included, face a lot of resistance, sometimes very strong. In your case, it sounds like it was pretty strong resistance against it. In mine, it was a little softer. What made you prevail? What made you push through and believe in yourself and decide, I think I know what I want and I think I'm right here, and not give in to the naysayers?
I think if you know that you really want to do it, you would only look back at yourself at that moment and just regret it. And I knew that if I didn't give it a shot, I would just regret it. And I think being able to kind of communicate that to the people that are talking to you or trying to talk you out of it is like the most important thing. And I remember talking to my parents about it, and eventually I think they finally realized how passionate I was at the very end. And they were like, all right, if this is what you want to try, do it. But if in 6 months or a year you don't make money, then you've got to pull it, because I mean, in life, you also do have to make a living for yourself, and you finish university, you've got to kind of do something with that. And that was my moment. I was like, you know what, I'll give myself 6 months to a year, and if I can't do it, I'm out. But this 6 months to a year, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna push myself as hard as I can to do it.
And did you succeed within the first 6 months to a year?
Yeah, after about 3 months, I think the money started to roll in to a point where it kind of was enough for minimum wage, and then after 6 months, my parents were like, "Thank God," which was kind of funny. Yeah, it was a quick turnaround.
Sometimes people fail for like over a year. What made you succeed so quickly relative to others in the art?
I think I came in at a good time, which was just after the peak of 2017. So I started in February 2018. I got lucky to be in a prop firm which was, you know, really helped me a lot, and I only have good things to say. Um, I think that the right combination of wanting to love it and pushing yourself, and you having this deadline and that pressure, but also kind of thriving in it, right timing and right place. At least for me, that was the perfect concoction to where I got to now.
Oh, well, very fortunate and humble of you to um, mention how there was a lot of bright timing in it. I mentioned for myself, without a doubt, joining at the start of 2017 wasn't the worst time to start trading
Definitely
crypto,
not.
that is. So, have you mainly been trading crypto or do you trade other markets?
Um, I After that moment in the Donald Trump kind of winning the election, that at that moment I tried to do FX, and I've got to say I was absolutely terrible. I definitely lost money on the long term. Um, I think that as soon as I changed to crypto and joined a firm to do it, that was the moment. I dabble in investing. I have some kind of investing portfolios, but that's about it. I wouldn't say that I'm an active trader in anything other than crypto. I think personally, I think there's too much opportunity in crypto that you'd be not if you're already in crypto. I don't think there's any reason to look elsewhere.
Yes, so many subsections within crypto, and this leads on to exactly what I was about to ask, which is, can you tell us a bit about your transition from lower time frame trading to the DeFi stuff you were talking about earlier?
I guess it was to be real with you. So to give you a bit of context, actually, I had been trading at a firm for about 2.5 years. This was at the start of 2020. I had just moved in back with my parents because I wanted to go abroad for about 2 years. I wanted to go traveling around South America for 6 months and then live in London for a few years and spend a bit of time with my family. So essentially, I had taken a few months off trading just to spend time with my family. And then, the whole COVID situation happened. I was supposed to leave about 2 weeks after all the lockdowns happened. So I just got back into trading like religiously, but I ended up actually hating trading after about 3 months of getting back into it. So about middle of last year, I absolutely dreaded it. I couldn't stand it. I quit for like a good 6 months. I don't think I took a single trade for about 6 months. I think it was a little bit of resentment towards this like COVID that I couldn't do what I wanted to do, and I had spent so much time cultivating and generating wealth so I could do these things that I wanted to do, but that kind of really pushed me the wrong way, and I kind of took it out on trading in a weird way. So I didn't trade for about 6 months, and then I just didn't find that love for it, and I started hearing about DeFi, One of my good friends, Hedgehog, he actually kind of introduced me to it and was talking to me about it. And so after hearing him talk about it, I was like, all right, let me kind of give this a shot. Let me have a look at what this is. And I think I rediscovered my love for what was trading before in DeFi again. So as soon as I kind of rediscovered that like passion to learn about DeFi, that was like that reignition spark that kind of got me into trading again. So initially it was just on the ETH network, and then I guess my big foray was after watching ETH kind of get a little bit too expensive during DeFi summer, transitioning towards the Binance Smart Chain and running that up super large on like PancakeSwap. And that's kind of how I got into DeFi per se, as an escape from trading.
It's what you said with COVID. It's one of those issues that there's no amount of money you can throw at it to make it go away and get your freedom, which is really frustrating as traders who've dedicated so many hours and so much blood, sweat, and tears to earning that money for the freedom, and you seem to value it very highly. And then this event happens. It's like it doesn't matter how much money you have, you're not getting your freedom.
Exactly that. There's nothing you can do about it. It's I guess everyone has to deal with it, right? And everyone was suffering because of it, regardless of who you are,
Yeah,
what you are, or where in the world you are.
a big equalizer in a sense. One of the biggest problems in the crypto industry right now is that there are far too many applications and none of them are very user friendly for beginners. That's why we've partnered with Exodus. They're a desktop and mobile wallet that allow users to own their own private keys, navigate a very easy interface where they can view their portfolio, store multiple different cryptocurrencies, as well as exchange and earn interest on those cryptocurrencies. So if you're interested in checking them out, head over to exodus.com. That's EXODUS.com. As the crypto industry continues to mature, it's natural that more and more wealth building platforms will arise. The problem with many of these, however, is that they are often so complex that it disincentivizes people from using them. This is why I've partnered with Nexo, one of the top crypto lending platforms in the world. With over 1.5 million users and 15 billion assets under management, Nexo combines the yield earning features of crypto with the familiarity and ease of centralized finance. Nexo allows you to earn interest at a competitive rate on crypto and fiat. They also allow you to take out loans using crypto as collateral so that you have access to cash without needing to sell your investment. You can even trade directly on the web platform and mobile app in an intuitive and secure way. If you're looking to embark on the journey to financial freedom whilst minimizing time and frustration, I highly recommend you check them out by visiting nexo.io. That's nexo.io. So, congratulations on the DeFi success. Do you still aggressively trade the DeFi markets? Is it mainly trading, yield farming, or a combination of both?
Uh, a combination of both, mostly on the yield farming side. I love to kind of just dabble in new farms and have a look around, see what's new, what protocols are working, where is the money going, trying to kind of come up with theses as to where the money will flow. Because at the end of the day, I think that money just flows in between markets pretty seamlessly, and you kind of have to. There are reasons. There are like specific reasons why money moves to certain markets, and you have like the ETH killers, you have your NFTs, you have your pretty much the copycat of ETH on Binance Smart Chain to kind of stop or to mitigate the fees, and then you have Solana coming up, and you have all these different factors. And I think that trying to piece together what the next move is quite a fun task. It's never easy, but it's quite a fun task to try kind of wrap your head around.
So you piece together the next move and try to get in early onto the yield farms of this new platform, be it Solana or Binance Chain that's coming up.
I guess so, in a weird way, but also try to just kind of see where everyone's head is at, because at the end of the day, you are trading against others. Yeah, yeah.
If I'm completely new right now and I hate my lower time frame trading, I get motivated by Glimmery's story of transitioning over to DeFi. Where would you suggest I begin? Where's the best place to start, and what should I be doing?
I guess ETH is where everything was built initially. You have all the smartest devs still on ETH, and I think that understanding ETH, because everything at the end of the day is pretty much it begun on ETH, and everything has been pretty much copied and pasted onto a different chain. So if you would want to start and you have enough money to pay the gas fees, which currently is quite low, I would start on ETH so you kind of understand how the market came to be. You understand your lending protocols, you understand your swapping protocols, you understand Uniswap, your shit coin protocol, you understand all these things. And then once you understand all these things, you will see the same thing over and over again on all these different markets, all these different chains. And that's probably the way I'd go because, yeah, you kind of want to see what the original was and how they were, if they're any good elsewhere.
And how risky is what you do? Do you opt for the more safe yield farms, or do you go for more aggressive strategies like um, some you can find on the more risky new Binance farms, say?
I guess I'm blessed in a way that I have enough finance to not have to push everything. I think as you end up progressing in your kind of wealth generation phase or wealth generation kind of journey, you have to be more, you have to understand risk a little bit more, and you have to understand that putting everything in the most DeFi, the most risky asset is probably not the most smart decision. So I think I have quite a vast array of across different chains, and I wouldn't say that I go for the absolute garbage anymore, but I do try kind of find a good place, a good in between per se.
So DeFi was one half of what you mentioned. The other half was quant trading. Now, what is quant trading? Can we start there?
It's a very broad term, but I guess the way I see it is just using a lot of data points and trying to use mathematics based on a lot of these data points to try extract value so that you can be profitable in a certain way of thinking. The beauty about trading or quant trading is the fact that you can do it, you can lead up to your imagination, right? You can do whatever you want. You can correlation trade, you can try spread things apart, you can spread things together. The most weirdest of coins, you can kind of come up with a theory as to why they should either spread apart or come together. And at least for myself and the guy that works with me, we kind of try kind of put ourselves in that mindset and try to kind of spreading, I guess, is the way that we would run our quant trading. But quant trading can be so many different things.
How long did it take you to start becoming successful at quant trading? And what did that journey look like?
I don't think it's ever like um a single point where you realize you're successful. It's at least in this kind of environment, it's always something could work, and then you leave it for a week, and then the theory is completely different the next week. And you have to, I think, the beauty of it is to be able to. I think that the best scenario is being a hybrid quant trader. You have to be able to kind of turn the things off and on based on the markets, or maybe you come up with, at least in our what we've created is created maybe two or three cycles as to how we kind of see the market going. And then if we see the market kind of switching from one sort of kind of the elements of maybe we one element of sorry um elements of like this one type of trading to then switching to another type of trading, I think we just kind of switch them on and off and then kind of shift capital over based on that.
And how much time does this take you per week to successfully quant trade? Both hypothesizing new strategies, testing them, as well as the semi manual operation of them.
I guess I have someone that works with me, so he's in charge of the whole quant trading side. So I would spend maybe a few hours, an hour a day talking to him about like how we can maximize things, how we can optimize things. But I'll make sure, but he'll be the one that the one gathers the data, gets the, we will come up with a theory together, and then he'll be the one that back tests it all, builds it all, and then releases it to the market, and then come up with ways that we can kind of maximize these things again through what he's seeing, and then we'll kind of come back together and collaborate again. So I don't think there's a certain amount of time, but it is very it's one of those things I love to do because you get to think in such a different way. It's not just this pure long short press buy here and then oh, this is my stop. It's like, how do we actually think the market's going to go? Being able to kind of sit back and look at these markets is, I find a lot of people just end up like chart trading and they don't really think what's actually happening in the market. I think that's really important to kind of develop your skills as a trader. You need to be able to kind of sit back and understand what's actually happening beneath these little candlesticks. Like there is a reason why these things go up and down constantly, and trying to kind of piece things together. It's a skill that you can really develop, and I've tried to push that with a lot of my close friends that are traders to think about the market more than just like candlesticks, more than just seeing it. Be instead of being reactionary, kind of trying to understand what's actually happening underneath the hood per se.
It gets me excited just diving into this part of the market, really understanding what's going on behind it. And I feel one of the best ways to do so is with extensive experience, which you've managed to develop now, going from multiple different types of trading from one to another. And I feel when you experience the market from all these different lenses, you really start to get a complete holistic understanding. Now, from what you've explained from the quant trading, that's probably why you're able to form such effective hypotheses. And on the other end, you've got your partner who I'm sure can set up the algorithms and make sure they execute properly. Is this accessible to the average person? Because I don't know how many people are in a position where they can start doing that.
To be honest with you, probably not. I think that you can build a basic quant strategy even on TradingView using PineScript, and that will push you in a lot of ways to think about why we do things. I find that a lot of people just end up being like, "Oh, if volume is greater than the last 5 candles, then long." But why are you doing that? Or what I used to actually do a lot was I'd go through PineScript and I'd pull a lot of scripts up, and I would just be like, "Okay, but why are we actually doing that? Why are you having this certain variable? Why do you have this certain like text of script, and what are you trying to achieve with that?" And then trying to dive into like, okay, that means that the market is doing this, and how can we kind of change that? I always really berate my friends that kind of be like, oh, use this indicator, and they don't know what the actual indicator does or how it's written. And I'm like, what are you trying to achieve with this? And so, yeah, sorry, a bit of a tangent. That's how I would kind of access it if you want to be a trader. Kind of go through scripts on TradingView and read the text and kind of come up with your own formula, and then maybe make your own as to why you view the market a certain way.
It's a trait I've seen. Obviously, we've had a lot of people on the podcast. One of uh, the most important traits for anyone who's successful in their field is that fundamental curiosity for why the candle is the way it is, why the market does what it does, why this indicator shows this information the way it does, why it changes, really just continually diving in deeper and deeper until you can get to those first principles of what makes it tick.
Definitely. Yeah. It's I find the people that, and I think it comes down to people being infinitely curious. If those people are the ones that kind of make a lot of money because they're infinitely curious about how these markets move. Going back to what we said before, like if you are doing it for the money, you don't have the want, or you don't even think about like trying to dive this far deep.
You're more curious about which Lambo you can afford next.
Exactly that. And here we are. I have a Honda Civic.
Still driving my original Polo 2006. Although now that I've moved country, I'm no longer driving that, so I can't flex my 15-year-old car anymore.
Definitely not. I know a lot of my close friends are going to be triggered by what I just said, but I have a smile on my face right now.
I love it and I respect it, and it actually could easily make a joke about it with this next segment we're going to, which Glimmery, it's why I reached out to you. You were tweeting not too long ago when the market took some heavy hits about how you yourself experienced some large losses. And it was, from what you said, stemmed from greed. But firstly, thank you for agreeing to talk about it. I know a lot of our listeners are really going to benefit from the insight because all they really see is the wins, the Lambos, the new watches, which seem to be trending. So, what happened during the crash for you?
I think I got too fixated on a certain idea, playing out, and it didn't play out the way I expected. And don't get me wrong, I did take some profits at the top, but wasn't as I didn't play it as I would have liked to. I don't think anyone in hindsight really played it as they really would have loved to. But I think I got a little bit too again, I got a little bit too greedy. And these figures that these goals all of a sudden come out of like, you're like, oh, I can afford this and I can afford that. And I personally try to not go down that route, but I found myself in that route. And I kind of found myself in that mindset. And I had too much exposure, but I guess this one didn't really hurt as much as probably my previous ones or my previous big losses, because at the end of the day, I wanted the exposure um, prior to the whole run up, because I knew I have a certain plan that I wanted to. Maybe I wish I took a little bit more off, but at the same time, I had these plans, and you know what? These things happen, and you kind of live and you learn. You dust yourself off, and you get hungrier to make it all back.
Before I continue with the next question, Glimmery, is it okay to ask what sort of loss you took? Just the rough ballpark.
Mid seven figures,
Wow,
roughly around that area.
that's more than most people see in a lifetime. And how did it feel? Because you said some previous losses felt even worse. How do you take a loss like that and continue? Obviously, you're profitable overall, and I'm sure you took profits at the top. But regardless, mid seven figure loss is a mid seven figure loss.
Yeah, it's a bit strange, right? Everyone deals with it their own way. I mean, of course, there were definitely moments of panic, but compared to some other losses, I don't think I was that upset or that like phased by it all. I specifically remember my probably the one that took me the hardest was within my first 3 months of trading, maybe, and I maybe lost 20% of my account. Maybe it was 20 grand, maybe it was 30 grand, something like that. Maybe it was a bit less. But I specifically remember that moment being much more detrimental because I had thought that my trading career was over. Um, I just know that I have pure faith in myself right now that I can make it back. And I have. And so I guess it didn't hit me that hard. Obviously, it's a big loss to take, but at the end of the day, like trading's trading, money's money. Like I get reminded. I've sent a paragraph or quite a lot of notes to one of my close friends that's not a trader, but I get them to send it to me whenever I kind of get in this mindset of, oh my God, I lost a lot of money, just to kind of bring me back to reality. And I'm fortunate enough to be in a spot where I can afford whatever I want still, and I've helped my parents buy a property. I bought my own property. Like I have a roof over my head, and people don't have that luxury. And how can I really get so upset about taking a loss when I'm still in such a good position? And that's the way I see it, right? Like I'm still in a much better position than when I was at the start of this year. So I don't know, that's how I kind of justify it. And I'm still, money's never been that important to me. And so, yeah, dust it off and get it back again.
Really interesting insight, and I can cross-reference a lot of what you said to. We had a podcast episode not too recently with Sam Tribuco, who's head of risk management at Alameda Research. I don't know if you heard the episode, but he was talking about. He wrote a thread about how as the utility of money decreases, because the richer you get, the less the extra money actually means anything. Because if you go from 100K to 200K versus going from 1 mil to 1.1 mil, the change in lifestyle drastically reduces. And the higher up you go, the more that happens. So, if anything, it makes it easier to take that sort of loss. At your prop firm, that big loss was devastating because you need that money for utility, whereas that 5 mil, it means you couldn't buy some of the cool mansions you were browsing or whatever it was on your bucket list.
Yeah, I actually made a post about this relatively recently about marginal utility. So this is like what I learned about, or one of my passions in learning about economics. It's called marginal utility. So for every dollar you make, how much utility you get from that $1, and the more, say, finance you have, the less utility you get from each added dollar. And at a certain point, it becomes so small and minute that, it doesn't really matter. So at the very start, the utility from one extra dollar is large. And I guess at that point now, like, I wouldn't notice a single difference. So keeping that in mind and making sure, like, putting yourself back in perspective and really thinking about how other people are. And it's quite sad where some people are in this world, and how can we be so greedy? And that's kind of what brings me back a lot of the
So,
time.
Glimmery, if I'm still at a point of not having enough to stomach these sorts of losses without some sort of serious emotional uh, hit, what are your tips for dealing with it? For example, if your portfolio took, say, that 5 mil took you from 6 mil to 1 mil, and that was the sort of hit you took because of a mistake, what advice would you give to yourself or any listener listening right now who's taken a big hit to deal with that, come out stronger?
I think first and foremost, if you were able to get to that position, you were doing something right. So kind of, first of all, take a break. I think if you were to take that big of a hit, you needed to take a break from trading. Like, it is emotionally, it's emotionally abusive, this trading game that we play. So just take a bit of a time off and I don't know, go back to your roots. How did you get to that point? And don't try push it, because I know that once you lose that amount of money, it can be so easy just to be like, I'm gonna revenge trade, which it's a big thing. And you just end up being this the moment where you're like, all right, what's an extra 100,000, or what's an extra 10% if I lose? And that just kind of dramatically just keeps turning over and over, and eventually you realize, oh shit, I have nothing. So don't revenge trade. Just kind of take a breather. And I remember, yeah, specific moments where I've just been, I need to take 10 minutes out, which at the time was a long time. Or maybe if this was a big loss, take a month off or take a week off, and just kind of turn off your charts, go snowboarding, go hiking, try to get away from everything. That's where I think will kind of like ground you a little bit.
So take a break, pay attention to what you were doing right, because if you saw serious success, that's something you can take away from that and use. Uh, Sounds like fantastic advice for anyone who's taken that sort of hit, and hopefully they can listen to your words and either aspire to get to the point where the utility is low enough to which they can take that mid seven-figure loss and not care, not care, but be able to persevere without much effort. Um, and congratulations on that front. Glimmery, the last thing I was hoping to discuss with you was investing and portfolio allocation, which is a point I'm sure you've gotten to at this point. Could you tell us a little bit about how you handle investing and portfolio allocation?
If I'm being truthfully honest with you, it's not my strong point. So just keep that in mind. I think it's important to diversify over time. I think there's still a lot of edge in crypto. So the way I see it is, if you're taking money off crypto, there are so many better ways than just keeping it in a bank per se, or even just investing in equities. I think that there are so many better risk adjusted returns that might be in stablecoin farms, that might be in borrowing certain things, lending protocols. Like, you'd be an idiot to take your money out of crypto, in my opinion, when you can have those risk adjusted returns in a stable coin. And you might have to then say, all right, I'm going to do it across 3 or 4 stable coins, but then that's the angle that I would take. But if you were asking more about the other side of things, I think you need to, again, diversify. It might be property, it might be equities, it might be buying some metals. I think that's important. Definitely.
And can you tell us a little bit about how you've gotten involved in equities, property, and commodities? Is it just somewhat of a hedge to your main crypto portfolio, or do you have a different approach?
Definitely more of a hedge. I've taken more of a uh I've kind of gone the blue chip route because I know that my crypto exposure is really risky. I kind of want something a bit more stable. So I've kind of gone more the traditional side, and bear in mind that this wouldn't be more than 5% of my portfolio. So, like, kind of more the bank stocks, more the things that I know that won't get too affected, and I can sleep at night not really caring what's going to happen tomorrow. Because I have such a large portion of my wealth in crypto, I just don't want to really think about it. And that might also be adding gold to my portfolio, might be adding other kind of not so risky assets. That's kind of the way I've taken it. And that's not necessarily the right way or wrong way, but that's just the way I've gone.
And do you not have any concerns about such a high crypto exposure? Mine isn't too dissimilar. I'm quite heavily into the space, and I agree with you with regards to DeFi. Just DeFi alone, there is so much opportunity to outperform most of what you see in other markets with, from what we've seen so far, relatively low risk.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's always like that element of what probably being overexposed to crypto, but exposed to crypto can be taken in so many different ways. Like you can have DeFi, you can have stable coins, you can have Bitcoin, you can have Ethereum, you can have or you can have your absolute shit coins and mid caps. Like I think that understanding portfolio management within crypto is in itself something completely different to then your portfolio as a whole.
Isn't there an underlying systematic risk, though? An underlying systematic risk of the whole thing collapsing?
Okay, so say you have USDT, USDC. Sure, one USDT might go down, but I don't think that at that point USDC, which is then backed by Coinbase, will necessarily go down. So maybe if you want to hedge against USDT, you then put half your money in USDC or DAI stablecoin. Or maybe you say, okay, I no longer really want to be in stablecoins, then you just put it into BTC as a store of value. I think there are so many options out there, and also then maybe putting it, if you don't want to then take the contract risk of maybe putting it onto one of these protocols to then farm, maybe lending it out through FTX or Binance, and you can still get quite a nice yield on those. So I think there are so many different ways. You don't have to go off platforms. You can go off platforms, make more yield. I think it just has to be risk adjusted to where your risk profile lies.
Glimmery, thank you for all the insight you've shared with us. It's been a terrific episode, very diverse one, lots of different topics, huge insight on the emotional side, as well as a bit of alpha leak, which I'm sure our listeners will enjoy. I know our listeners can find you on Twitter, which is fantastic, and I'll have you spell out your @ in a second. And also, please do leave any message you'd like to leave our listeners with for the end of the podcast.
My Twitter is Glimmery Coin, so GLIMMERYCOIN. Glimmery Coin, pretty basic. To be honest with you, if I've inspired someone or if I've helped someone along the way, that's all I can really ask for. Yeah, hopefully you guys you found it interesting.
I'm sure they will have. And Glimmery, in 6 to 12 months' time, I'd absolutely love to have you back on the podcast, see where you're at on your journey, how the yield farming's been going, and where you are in life at that point. Thanks for joining us again, Market Meditators. That is everything for this episode of the Market Meditations podcast. Glimmery was a great guest with a huge amount of insight into trading psychology, DeFi, and finding balance in life. I was a big fan of his decision to check out the Ethereum DeFi ecosystem to better understand the type of applications that exist. However, this is only the start, and to help understand this complicated topic and others like it, I have my research team write 6 free Market Meditations newsletters a week. To access all of this, all you have to do is go to 𝐏𝐸𝐻.substack.com. If you were interested in Glimmery's thoughts on the true value of money, make sure to check out our episode with Crypto Messiah, where we had a brilliant discussion on finding happiness.